Good morning. I'm Rowena Crosby.
And I'm Deborah Renner, and we're your co-hosts for this show. Thank you for joining us for the next 17 minutes for your IT show. No, we're not talking information technology. We're talking Your Invisible Toolbox, the show that examines the tools essential for working effectively with others.
And this program is pre-recorded. We've got some travel conflicts on the day we broadcast, so we're here in the Tarot International studio.
Ro, did you know that half of the millennials are said to think of their life as a video game?
That's an interesting perspective of our life.
And 6 out of 10 have been noted to say that #win should be the slogan for their generation.
Well, that may not be limited to the millennials. Winning is important to all of us, particularly when it happens in business, no matter what generation we're from.
That is so true, but how to win in business has changed through times. Now, another fun fact about the millennials, or what we see from the things that are said about them, is they're adept at navigating the loopholes, the trapdoors, and the Easter eggs of life using their smarts, their technology, and that peer power that they have. But it actually even takes more than that to be able to win in the business sense today, doesn't it?
It does, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. If you're following along in the book, Your Invisible Toolbox, we're in chapter 27, and it's called #winning. And there's lots of applications of this tool to every aspect of our professional lives, even our personal lives. And today we're going to look at it in the context of selling.
And we're going to take a look at an invisible tool that is going to help us realize we can create relationships as well as a more in-depth knowledge of our customers and sales.
And we're going to take a look at a development challenge that challenges us to really take a look at some of the ways that we view the sales process, and we're going to bust a really important myth around sales that holds a lot of us back.
And we're thrilled that Maureen Berger, a certified tarot trainer in outcome-driven selling, is going to be here, and she's going to share with us some of the barriers that make that relationship building challenging when it comes to sales.
Yes. So let's get started.
Well, Nick Shore, in a Harvard Business Review article, says millennials tend to demand fairness, transparency, and clear rules. And if that is true, it seems like they're the generation primed to want to work through things in a mutually beneficial way.
And isn't that a wonderful way to look at the world? Unfortunately, our natural human programming does push us to look for solutions very quickly in the spirit of efficiency, and we can end up with outcomes that aren't transparent and aren't fair and don't have clear rules.
And so in the process of going straight to options, and one option might be a compromise, and that's a good result, but in going to that too quickly, we might actually produce some unproductive emotions on the part of our customer if they feel their ideas haven't been completely considered. And though we might get that result in the short term, we might actually be setting ourselves up in the long term for less than what we could have gotten, and maybe a #epic fail.
The hashtags, I love it. Well, and compromise means we win some of what we want and we lose some of what we want. So we're not sure that's a full win. And we're going to take a look at collaboration as a set of skills that can lead to the result that gets us that mutually beneficial outcome.
And in order to get there, we need an invisible tool.
And so it is time to look at your invisible tool of the week. And our invisible tool this week is to ask why.
We can explore taking a decision and creating something more than a compromise, taking it to a collaboration, and we achieve more than a 50-50. And actually, we can possibly achieve a greater win for both parties.
Absolutely. And so often we just take what the customer says at face value, and we lose the opportunity to look deeper at why is something in the interest of the customer.
Yeah, we miss the great opportunity in sales, and that is the chance to get more information, to understand more about our customer, which can really help us in terms of not only knowing what it is they want, but figuring out if what they're saying that they need is actually what's the best thing for them, and being able to educate and challenge in that process.
And that really speaks to an outmoded approach to selling, which is a tell approach where we just deliver our pitch. You know, customers have so much access to information now with the internet, its blogs, its search engines, its social media sites, and what they really need isn't someone to deliver information, it's someone to help sort through all of the information that's there.
It's a very new model, and it comes into engaging the customer in a way that we're getting to what their interests are, using the invisible tool of asking why, and taking a look at the sales process not just as a series of transactions with the customer, but a series of interactions that's going to build trust and develop that relationship.
So it makes a lot of sense to facilitate dialogue and ask why. Why is that so hard for us to do?
Well, we're going to take a look now at our Mythbuster, and because of the myth that we hold, that's what creates the difficulty in actually using that invisible tool.
Well, so let's take a look at a perception that we all have, and perhaps a misperception. When people are surveyed and asked to describe salespeople, certain words come to mind. They use adjectives. So, Deb, what do you suppose the common words are that people use to describe sales professionals?
Well, I've seen those surveys, so I know what the words are, so I'm going to share with you what they say. And unfortunately, the words tend to be things like pushy, aggressive, kind of slippery.
That's correct, to the tune of 95%. Yeah. Most of us have a negative connotation of what a salesperson is, and we've really got to debunk this myth because that's an outmoded form of selling. The new approach to selling is one that's collaborative and consultative.
Yeah, and the sales professional does have information that they need to present, but it needs to be presented in a very different type of interaction.
And so the myth of the salesperson is pushy needs to be busted, but it can't be replaced with the myth of the sales professional as a friend. We've got to figure out what is that balance that we can be a true partner to our customer. And that also leads us into another thing that's hard to get our head around, that all of us are salespeople.
Exactly. And you know, that salesperson that's engaging is showing up in a way, they're not just going to focus on that short-term tangible of what the short-term result is and the tangible result, but being able to get a conversation going about what are some of those long-term factors that are important to the customer, what are the intangibles. Sometimes they don't even know what those are until we can lead that discussion. And it might be things like, what do they want their reputation to be over time, or what does their profit mean in terms of their goals around philanthropy. There's all kinds of things that we can uncover.
There absolutely are. So getting rid of the myth that it's a pushy salesperson has to go, and that leads us into the segment of the program we call Your Development Challenge. And this is where we challenge ourselves to take a look at things and maybe try something new.
Monroe, you said we all are salespeople, which we are. We don't like to think of it, but we are. That's another role that we hold. Anyone that touches a customer is a salesperson. One of the first things that we challenge people to do when they come into an outcome-driven selling class or a sales academy, one of the very first things is to challenge the way they look at the sales process. That has changed so much.
It really has, and that gets to the heart of why people don't see themselves as salespeople. They come off into class wanting answers to these questions. How do I close, and how do I overcome objections? And that's such a narrow approach to sales. Today, we really need to look at it more broadly, and in fact, a really good relationship with a customer doesn't have a close. It's a series of interactions over time, and we're not overcoming objections. We're working collaboratively with a customer to solve problems, and that means all of us are salespeople. No matter who you are, if you touch a customer directly or indirectly, you're in sales, and you're probably relieved to hear that the days of the pushy salesperson are over.
And so we have to challenge how we take a look at the sales process, but we also have to challenge then how we take a look at ourselves.
We do have to challenge that. So we have to challenge how we view sales, and we also have to challenge what is the set of skills, what are our deeply held beliefs around it. The world has changed considerably with all the technological innovations. It's affected every profession, but perhaps none more than for sales professionals whose entire line of work has changed because of the information-rich economy. And so all of us need to challenge how we view that and what we view our role as being collaborators and consultants.
So that's our development challenge, is to now take a look at how do you view the sales process and how do you view yourself as a salesperson.
Well, now it's time to take a look at our Tarot social media posts of the week. And those of you that follow us on social media already know that we post several times every day useful links to interpersonal skills topics. We're going to feature 2 of them today. And our first featured post is to a Harvard Business Review article. And it takes a look at asking leading questions in the sales process and why that's outmoded and why it can actually backfire on us. So that article will be on all Tarot social media platforms today.
And our second post is a tarot tips video titled, "What is your sales pre-call plan?" And it actually features Ro, and she's explaining the merits of having a plan and incorporating how to engage in a conversation where you are asking why and you are getting to those underlying interests. And that's going to be on all social media platforms on Thursday.
Well, now we're moving into the segment of the program we call This Week's Interview, and we are delighted to be joined by Maureen Berger. Welcome, Maureen. Thanks for joining us. And Maureen's going to talk to us a little about the barriers facing sales professionals and what some of the solutions around that are. Welcome, Maureen. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Hello, Maureen. We're
Hello.
so glad to have you here. Maureen is certified in our outcome-driven selling process, and she's going to talk to the barriers. But before you do, Maureen, could you share a little bit about your background with our viewers?
Sure. Before joining Tarot, I was the vice president of call center operations in one of the insurance companies.
Thank you,
in the insurance industry. And before that, I led several teams of call center teams in the automotive industry as well as the wireless communications industry.
And those are tough selling situations
Yes, they are.
if you think about a call center.
Yeah,
Yes.
talk about barriers. Well, let's talk about one of the barriers that we know is that the salesperson today has so much information
Yes.
that they can arrive at the sales call with way too much content. Can you speak to that?
Thank you, Deb. This is a common barrier of sales professionals of becoming successful during that sales transaction. More industries are becoming more and more technical, and as a result, sales representatives feel they have so much information to share with their customer, and then they do a data dump. And as a result, the customer is either getting confused or lost in the process. Instead, the sales representative should really sit back and ask questions, find out what's important to that customer, and share information accordingly.
Okay, and that could create, if they don't do that, the salesperson's talking quite a bit. What's the risk of that?
Yes, the salesperson talks too often and talks too much. And so frequently, really the sales representative should really sit back and listen more to what the customer has to say. They'll discover and learn so many more things that are important to the customer if they're not talking too much. But with busy schedules, sales quotas to meet, and wanting to close the deal, our sales representatives are jumping in too quickly with information versus taking a step back.
Yeah, they might even be jumping in with something that they would not necessarily jump in with if
Yes.
they knew the interests and the needs. What about if we are asking these questions, we've got to listen. Can you speak to that?
Yes, we do need to
Listening.
listen, and this relates to the last barrier we just talked about, which is talking too often, talking too much. We fail to listen to what the customer really wants. So we ask a question and we listen to respond. We think about the next great thing that we want to say
We all
versus
do that.
listening to understand what the customer's interests really truly are.
Okay. And, sometimes we're talking and we're listening to customers who are, it seems challenging. There's tension in these sales calls.
Yes.
And there can be tension. Maybe we don't know the person very well. How do we handle that?
Well, first of all, tension exists in every sales interaction. Whether you know the customer well and they're willing to buy and they're thinking about doing that, or if it's a prospect that you don't know because they don't know you, so that tension exists. And this doesn't even begin to touch on if the customer's annoyed with you or the prospect's annoyed with you. So tension will always exist. It's important to understand that building that relationship with the customer, understanding what might be creating that tension for them, and helping them to realize solutions, that's that working collaboratively with the customer.
Oh, and some customers we just generally tend to get along better with, and we love calling on them, and some are more challenging for us. Those biases exist.
Yes. We tend to, most salespeople will use their own biases as to how they approach their customers or their prospects. They think that they might know a customer so well and have a great relationship with them, and we call that the halo effect. They look at every interaction with that customer through rose-colored glasses. They think everything is wonderful. That relationship can suffer because we take it for granted.
We do that in our personal lives, too.
Yes, we do. And on the flip side, we also think that we might know this customer who we might have what we call the horns effect. We think every interaction is going to be bad, so we don't even approach some opportunities, and we're leaving some sales on the table.
Yeah, definitely leaving things on the table. Well, a lot of sales people are just really great naturally at striking up a conversation, striking up a relationship. Is it okay to go into some sales calls without a plan?
We call that winging it. And some salespeople will attribute some of their success to their ability to wing it because they are good conversationalists. They can talk to anybody. But research has shown us that even those who are good at winging it should go into a sales interaction with a plan. Save your improv skills for the time when you will need them, because you will inevitably need that. But if you can plan, then you'll know what questions to ask, and you're not just jumping into the sales pitch. You'll use a plan rather than looking for the close right
That
away.
would be a risk of winging it, is getting into that pitch and just going for it. So one last question, Maureen. If we get all the way to decision making, but then we feel the customer kind of starting to back out, how do we handle that?
Yes, and that can happen. Again, going back to questioning the customer. So the customer's fear in making a decision, they want to buy, but they're just not sure. Understanding what the underlying interests are of the customer, what might be some of the things that might be holding them back from making a decision. Is it, what will my spouse think? What will my boss think? How will my employees react if I make this decision? Those are all things that are real fears for a customer, but asking the questions and understanding what those are to help alleviate that for your customer and making that decision.
So some tools around asking questions.
Yes.
These are such important things to think about with regards to creating the kinds of sales relationships we've talked about today. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Maureen. And thanks to all of you for joining us. If you missed any portion of the program or you'd like to share it with others, you'll find the entire program loaded up to Taro's YouTube channel. Join us again next Monday morning at 9:03 Central Time, where we will be streaming live again and exploring another tool in your invisible toolbox.
And now it's your turn. We welcome your ideas and suggestions for future shows. What team interactions are you having? What leadership situations are you in? Email your ideas to ideas@yourinvisibletooolbox.com, and we'll incorporate them in our future shows. And please meet us out there on your favorite social media platform. And we're also out on Instagram. And if you haven't subscribed to Taro's YouTube channel, subscribe, follow the link below, and you'll be alerted as to when future shows are going to air. And we would like to thank again our cameraman and director, Kyle Plummer.
And thanks again to Maureen for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you, and that's a wrap.